Dahmer's confession unveiled a haunting desire for death over freedom, shedding light on his intricate psychological turmoil. His recognition of being unwell adds layers to the narrative of pure evil, reminding us that behind every dark act lies a complex human story. In a surprising twist, Dahmer expressed a desire to raise awareness about the critical issues surrounding mental health, aiming to prevent future tragedies. His story serves as a powerful cautionary tale, urging those grappling with similar disorders to reach out for help and find hope. Despite his plea of insanity, the court ruled Dahmer to be sane, illustrating the intricate challenges of navigating the murky waters between mental illness and criminal accountability. This pivotal ruling shapes the path for future judicial cases, reminding us of the complexity of human behavior. Dahmer's candid acknowledgement of his past actions reveals a profound understanding of his heinous crimes. He voiced deep regret for the pain he inflicted, showcasing a remarkable level of self-awareness that many may not expect from someone who has caused such suffering. The video highlights the unsettling reality of Dahmer's financial gain from his notorious reputation, sparking a debate about the morality of profiting from criminal deeds. This troubling aspect raises significant ethical questions, especially regarding the compensation of victims' families. Dahmer's history of legal issues, including a prior conviction for sexual assault, reflects a disturbing pattern of behavior. His brief stint in prison showcases systemic shortcomings that contributed to the devastating consequences that followed, urging us to seek ways to address such failures. Throughout his court appearances, Dahmer's expressionless demeanor raised unsettling questions about his emotional detachment. This intriguing aspect captivated media attention and fueled public interest, leaving many to wonder about the depths of his psyche. The trial provided a poignant opportunity for victims' families to confront Dahmer, allowing them to voice their grief and share their heart-wrenching stories. These compelling addresses served to illuminate the profound personal losses felt by many, echoing the pain of his actions. In recognition of the horrific nature of his crimes, the judge imposed a mandatory life sentence on Dahmer, symbolizing a measure of justice for the grieving families. This decision, while significant, reflects the complex pursuit of justice in the face of such unimaginable acts. The judge's remarks underscored the emotional anguish and terror that permeated the case, emphasizing that certain tragedies leave scars that cannot be erased. This profound reflection on justice reminds us of the invaluable lives affected by Dahmer's actions. Dahmer's chilling legacy includes the brutal murder of 17 men and boys, highlighting the terrifying extent of his criminal actions. The repercussions of his deeds continue to resonate, leaving an indelible mark on the lives of the victims' families. The circumstances surrounding Dahmer's murder in prison evoked a spectrum of reactions from the victims' families, revealing the complex emotions entwined with justice and suffering. While some felt a sense of relief, others continued to carry the heavy burden of pain, illustrating the deep scars left behind.
Where is my American?
There are some levels of evil that words almost can't describe. There are some acts of madness that courts are simply not prepared for. This was the moment Jeffrey Dahmer had to face the music and was given his life sentence. An evil like no other. It was a case that shook America.
A gruesome story leads off our newscast.
Milwaukee police found body parts in a North Side apartment, and now they wonder if they've uncovered some kind of death factory.
The details were chilling.
Police removed boxes and boxes of body parts, evidence of what appears to be a psychopathic mass murder.
The numbers were horrifying.
Now authorities believe the suspect, 31-year-old Jeffrey Dahmer, may be responsible for as many as 17 murders.
30 years on, his actions continue to confuse and astound through the new Netflix series Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. This was his response to facing life in prison. Dahmer addresses the court. You could say that the Wisconsin courts were not built for these levels of evil. Upon hearing his sentencing in court, Dahmer was quite relieved.
Your Honor, it is over now. This has never been a case of trying to get free. I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself.
In Wisconsin, there is no death penalty, so he faced life behind bars.
This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did not for reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace.
Dahmer was diagnosed with paraphilia, substance use disorder, and schizotypal personality disorder. He wanted his sickness to be well known and would stop similar people from acting upon their dark impulses.
That maybe there was a way for us to tell the world that if there are people out there with these disorders, maybe they can get some help before they end up being hurt or hurting someone. I think the trial did that.
Despite pleading insanity, the court ruled that Dahmer was sane during his killings. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz focused on one specific thing that proved Dahmer's sanity: alcohol.
But another reason he would drink is that when he was alone with those whom he meant to harm, he would have inhibitions against the killing that he would need to drink to overcome.
In order to carry out his twisted fantasies, Dahmer needed to drink heavily. He couldn't carry out these actions whilst sober, which suggests that he knew what he was doing, and he knew that it was wrong. Now, facing the court, he had to finally own up to these actions.
I know how much harm I have caused. I tried to do the best I could after the arrest to make amends, but no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I have caused.
The only consolation the victims have now is that Dahmer showed some remorse for his actions. Dahmer now starts talking money. His unspeakable actions made national news, so Dahmer was actually set to make some cash from his horrifying actions.
If there is ever any money, I want it to go to the victims' families.
This turned out to be a bizarre form of compensation.
Today, it's the sale of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer's deadly possessions that has some people scrambling and others screaming. Up for bids? A hatchet, saws, the refrigerator where Jeffrey Dahmer kept body parts, and other macabre memorabilia.
As well as the victims' families, there were other people Dahmer wanted to apologize to.
The judge in my earlier case tried to help me, and I refused his help, and he got hurt by what I did.
These multiple murders were not Dahmer's first run-in with the law. He was also arrested in 1989 for the sexual assault of a teenage boy named Somsak Synthesymphony. According to the Times, Dahmer was convicted of sexually assaulting Somsak in 1989 after he convinced the then 13-year-old boy to follow him to his apartment to take part in a nude photo shoot in exchange for money. The judge intended to sentence Dahmer to 8 years in prison, but Dahmer wrote a letter of regret to the judge. He served 10 months and was then freed on probation. The judgment, in hindsight, literally cost lives. Dahmer then apologized to the police officers he tricked.
I hurt those policemen in the Konarak matter, and I shall ever regret causing them to lose their jobs.
When Dahmer was on probation, he began luring teenage boys into his apartment once again. Police were alerted to a naked and bruised Asian boy roaming through the streets. He was drunk, and they thought that he was Dahmer's boyfriend. So, they returned him back to Dahmer. Dahmer killed him later that night.
It is contained in the front page of the Milwaukee Journal this afternoon, the headline reading, "Police were in the Dahmer apartment." This was May 27th, nearly 2 months before the first bodies were found there.
The boy's name was Konarak Synthesymphony, the brother of the very person Dahmer was on probation for assaulting earlier. Emotionless. This response is, sadly, as emotional as Dahmer ever got. In his previous court appearances, he showed little emotion whatsoever. It was a classic poker face. This was in July 1991, shortly after his arrest.
Mr. Dahmer, you're charged with 4 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. If convicted of each of those counts, you face a term of life imprisonment. You're also charged with habitual criminality. That would add an additional 10-year penalty to each count upon conviction. Do you understand that?
I understand, Your Honor.
A few months later, when more victims were found and charged against him, he still retained his expressionless face. The media was perplexed. Voices of the victims. It was at the final trial, however, that the victims finally got to look Dahmer in the eye and tell him how they felt.
Grief-stricken families of the 15 men and boys Dahmer killed and mutilated held their peace. But today, before the sentencing, they had their day in court.
Did you ever stop to think that this is someone's brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, grandson, or just someone's friend?
These speeches were incredibly powerful.
I hope you can deal with what you've done. I'm trying hard to. You almost destroyed me, but I refuse to let you destroy me. I will carry on.
You destroyed the baby of the family, and I hope you go to hell.
Most of them kept their calm, but not all.
Only the sister of Errol Lindsay was unable to contain her rage.
I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again.
The judge's final words. The judge read out Dahmer's long sentence.
The court will impose a mandatory life sentence plus an additional 10 years on the habitual criminality. Count 2 life imprisonment plus 10 years consecutive to count one.
And it goes on. Essentially, Dahmer was sentenced to 957 years behind bars, meaning he'd be a free man by the year 2949. The judge could not help but comment on how horrifying the case had been for him too.
Nobody gets to ask the judge how you feel about horror movies, because I'll tell you what I do, I turn them off. That's one of the powers that you have when you control the television set.
Then he said something highly profound, that this horrible tragedy could not be fixed. What was done was done.
A number of you have heard me use the expression before, I wish I had that magic button that I could put things back in place. But I don't have the power to bring people back to life. You know, that's in the hands of somebody else.
Aftermath. We know that Jeffrey Dahmer did not get to serve his sentence. He was only in prison for 2 years until someone decided to give Jeffrey a taste of his own medicine.
In Wisconsin today, Jeffrey Dahmer died. He was murdered in the prison where he was sent in 1991 for murdering 17 men and boys.
Dahmer's killing received mixed reactions from the victims' families.
I am happy and very excited that the monster is finally dead.
It's worse now because he's not suffering like we are.
There was never, ever going to be a happy ending to this story. It was, fittingly, a brutal departure from this world for one of the world's most brutal and cold-hearted killers. Thank you so much for watching. Please click on some of the videos in front of you for more exhilarating stories from the world of crime.